Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's my Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. I've now owned it for several weeks, and I've put over 1,000 miles on it, so today's update video is going to be what is it like to own the RAV4 Hybrid after 1,000 miles. A few of these points and things that I need to mention are going to relate to the regular RAV4 as well, but a lot of this video is not going to be a carryover to other videos. This is going to be what are the most interesting things I have noticed with this platform after 1,000 miles. Not compared to the Subaru it came from, not compared to the other Subaru that we own or other vehicles that I've driven. This is going to be about this vehicle as a whole. There's also going to be a hybrid video coming soon, focused on what are about a dozen very interesting points about owning a hybrid and how does that compare and differ from what I was expecting. But this video, being about 1,000 miles now of experience behind the wheel, there are a few topics I feel like I can speak to, a few things that I need to share with you guys so that if you are considering buying one of these for 2025, you can make sure that you make the right decision for you. And if this isn't what you want, then hopefully you find this video in time and you don't buy it. But if this is what you want and you can live with the things that I'm about to mention, then more power to you. And if you guys get anything out of this video today, please consider liking it. Comment your thoughts and opinions below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Otherwise, let's get right into the main points of what is it like to own one of these after 1,000 miles. And it's worth mentioning because not every single person who starts this video will watch it to the end, is overall this is a very good vehicle. There really haven't been any drastic surprises. My example hasn't been a lemon, although I have had some of the same concerns that many of you guys have had, and that's just general production issues. But overall, the experience of owning this vehicle so far has been a pretty good one. It's not the perfect vehicle, and I knew that going into it, and in some ways it wasn't even an upgrade and could have even been considered a downgrade compared to my last vehicle in certain aspects, as every vehicle has different topics and different things that its manufacturers prioritize and focus on in the development of the vehicle. But overall, this has been a good vehicle. But the first thing that I need to mention is mine does have a couple squeaks, a couple rattles. I have all the same items in my vehicle that I had in the last one, and it didn't have the same creaks and rattles. There was a slight headliner creak that I had on my Outback, my last vehicle, but this one so far maybe has the driver's side door crackle or rattle or whatever you want to call it at very specific speeds and RPMs. It's not consistent all the time, so part of that might be due to road vibrations and wind and other things affecting the door panel, but it's not perfectly silent. It is very similar to a lot of other crossovers, but it is, already with 1,000 miles, you can hear a couple little noises in the quietness of early morning or night when there are not other sounds drowning it out. But thankfully the speakers in this actually sound better than I was expecting for economy speakers, and not being an upgraded system, and it's very easy to drown out any little subtle cracks and rattles that you hear because of the speaker system. The next thing to mention is about the remote start system on this. When you buy a new Toyota, you actually get a year of the Toyota app for free, but because one of the benefits of buying a modern Toyota is they basically all have physical climate controls and HVAC and heated seat buttons, and it's not controlled through a big screen like it is on half of the other automakers. When you do a remote start on the vehicle through the app, you can't specify temperature, you can't change the heated seat function, you can't change which vents are flowing, because that all would be software controlled on a big screen. But on this, it's just going to start the way that you left it. But thankfully, mine being a hybrid SE actually has the remote start feature through this key. The way that you would access it on this is you push the lock button 3 times, holding it for a few seconds on the third one, and it'll start. But in reality, after a few weeks, I've only used that feature 1 time through the key to confirm mine had it, and through the app 1 time for basically the same purpose, because as soon as you open the door, the engine shuts off, which is very frustrating because a lot of other automakers, they have figured out a way to keep it safe, keep it from being stolen without it shutting off. So the engine should be starting soon, or at least the battery EV mode. You can see all the flashing, should be good to go. I'll try to turn off the noise cancellation. Mine is currently in EV mode, but as soon as you'd open the door, everything shuts back off. So that is pretty frustrating. I'm just gonna make sure that the power is off again. Oop, there we go. So that is a kind of a frustrating feature that Toyota can't seem to figure out the software for this, because a lot of other automakers have. So for that reason, I don't really use it unless you are going to actually have the vehicle run for a few minutes. So through the key, it could be kind of convenient if you're inside and your vehicle's parked outside, maybe to run it for a few minutes before you run out. But if you're just walking across the parking lot, it might be a frustrating experience for you to start the vehicle just to open the door and have it abruptly shut off again. And then something that has been really fun with this car is the miles per gallon. I'm trying to hypermile it. I'm currently getting 36.8. You can see I'm just under a half tank of gas, but all of that has basically been going interstate speed, 80 miles per hour. So MPG, let's talk about that. Around town, I get anywhere from 40 to 44, typically, sometimes even up to 50 if it's a really short trip and I can drive about a third of the way in battery mode. Currently, you can see it's just 100% EV. We're not moving anywhere. The vehicle's only technically been on for 1 minute. So if you can keep that number to like 33%, you might be up to about 50 miles per hour. Otherwise, I would say Toyota's rating of 41 or EPA's rating is pretty accurate around town. And interstate speed in my area is 80 miles per hour. Going that, the worst I have ever gone was 30 miles per gallon. The best I have gone so far in only 1,000 miles is about 34 miles per gallon. And highway speed seems to be, pretty close to what it actually has as an overall average right now. So this has been really good for MPG. It is really fun to drive it in EV mode and enjoy those spaceship sounds and enjoy the fact that you can move the vehicle without using any gas. I do have one correction to make under the hood, or one update for those of you who haven't seen those videos, because a lot of people are kind of unfamiliar with this hybrid system, even though it's been around for quite a while and almost 500,000 of these are sold every year. I guess technically most of them are non-hybrids, but still you might be interested to find out. First of all, there's no serpentine belt, there's no starter, and there's no alternator on this. So there are a few maintenance items that you don't have to worry about on a Toyota hybrid system such as this, because a lot of that is compensated through the battery pack, through the electronic components on the driver's side of the engine. But a correction I need to make that I've said in previous videos is there wasn't an AC compressor and that it had a heat pump. It sounds like it's only the RAV4 Prime that has the heat pump, kind of like what a Tesla has, where it doesn't have a motor, it doesn't have coolant running through it, the same way to push that heat into the interior of the vehicle through the vents. So this actually does have a traditional heating system, but it has an electronic AC compressor. So that's why it still needs the AC compressor. It doesn't have the heat pump, but it's not belt driven, it is electronic, which is pretty cool. One of you guys even mentioned before that you had a 2012 Camry, and you didn't even have to replace the regular 12-volt battery for 10 years. And then that finally went out and you were wondering what the heck is going on. It is pretty impressive that this hybrid system can preserve even a 12-volt battery for up to a decade. And another one of you guys have mentioned that when you go car camping in your RAV4, because of the electronics, because of the kilowatt-hour battery pack under the back seats, you can actually leave this running and it only fires up. It only gets the gas motor turning for maybe 8 minutes every 30 minutes, you said. And the rest of the time it's still pushing out air, it's still pushing out heat, but it's doing that more so because of the electronic components in the battery, so you don't have to leave the vehicle running all night, which is pretty darn impressive. But I do think it's worth mentioning, I used to have a scan tool on a few different vehicles, so I've seen how many gallons per hour ratings different engines are, and a big V8 that I used to own did about a ½ gallon per hour of idling, and 4 cylinders, specifically a 2.7 liter Toyota Tacoma I used to own, that only did like 0.3 or less gallons per hour. So when you're just idling, you really aren't actually using much fuel just to sustain such a low RPM, not under load or anything. But still, to be idling only a quarter of the time instead, if you are car camping in it out in the wilderness somewhere like where I am today, that is a pretty neat feature, and I'm glad that this Toyota lets you do that. But we do need to talk about the battery. It's under the back seats. It actually seems like it's pretty easy to service if you ever actually had to service it. But you do need to be wary of not blocking the vents because you don't want to block the airflow, which adds to the cooling abilities of this battery to not overheat and basically to not prematurely age, because that's what heat often does to mechanical components. The next thing to mention relates to the safety features and Toyota Safety Sense 2.5. I was expecting a little bit better. I'm sure 3.0 corrects a lot of those issues. I'm sure the 2026 Toyota RAV4 will have those. But this one, I was expecting it to be a little bit better than it actually is in reality. You can see the blind spot monitoring. You can see that it has adaptive cruise control, has some parking sensors, lane keep assist, lane tracing, some of those sort of features. But if we go through the safety systems, in an earlier video I said that the lane tracing, where it keeps you centered, doesn't seem to work very well. And that was because when I was in cruise control, I would have it on, or I would, right there, sorry, and then I would turn it off and it would say it's off, then I would turn it back on and say it's on. And I was wondering what the heck is going on, it's not keeping me centered down the lane. And I actually test drove RAV4 back in like 2019, and that one seemed to keep you pretty straight down the road. But that was also the first time I drove a system like that. So maybe that was just the lane keep assist, I don't know. But it wasn't until I dove a little bit deeper into the settings, I held okay on the LTA, and I realized that lane centering was off. So then, of course, I felt like an idiot, and it's like, oh, so that's why it wasn't working. It was keeping you bouncing back and forth in your lane, but it wasn't working for that feature, and that made a lot of sense. But then I turned it on, and it really didn't work very well. This system doesn't keep you going around corners nearly as well as some other vehicles. Again, I'm trying to not compare this too much, but I was expecting a better system. The adaptive cruise works really well. The high beams, like a lot of vehicles, I don't think the auto high beams work very well. Technically, I think you only have to keep your high beams off 500 feet from an oncoming vehicle, but that's not very far. When you're traveling highway speed, 60 miles an hour or faster, they're going to be there within a couple seconds. You're going to very much so upset them if you have your high beams on, and the system seems to follow more like that. It's a very sharp system. As soon as you click the button, the beams usually turn on, but it doesn't seem to want to turn them off until the vehicle feels like it's right in front of you, and for that reason, I'm not going to use that system. But my biggest concern is that the lane tracing doesn't work as well as I was expecting it to. But I do have to say, the heated seats in this are about average for the class. I was hoping they would be better, but they are warm enough that I'm not going to complain too much. I do like that it's physical controls to push them in, but it can sometimes be hard to push it without clicking the next option, just because it fluctuates and rotates ever so slightly. And then the heated steering wheel, it actually gets super hot. I wish that's as hot as the heated seats got, but this gets very warm, but only between the stitching line right there, between the leather interruption. All of this, nothing. All of this, nothing. So that's a shame. I usually like to hold on up here. I usually like to hold on down here. I'm not often 9 and 3 exactly, so it's unfortunate that that is where it has so much heat. I wish it was dispersed better. And then another thing is these lights are huge. These LEDs are really bright, especially at night. You would think that you push the huge light to turn it on and off like you do in some other vehicles, but nope, it's this tiny little button right here. Literally 3% the surface area of this big light. So when you're blinded by the light looking up, trying to turn it off at night when you're driving, if you need it on for just a brief second, you can't really push the button. You're gonna be missing, you're gonna be pushing all over the place, maybe opening up the sunroof, maybe calling 911. You don't really know. Every day, it's a different adventure. I wish that you could just push in and do its thing. And then while I do love the physical climate controls on this, these buttons, again, very tiny. You're accidentally smudging up the screen, you're missing the button completely. You just gotta be really careful because they are quite small, but it is a good looking system, and I'd prefer this over screen any day. So overall, ultimately, I am very happy with my decision to buy this vehicle and to try something new. It's not perfect, it's not better in every way. It is better in a few ways, it's worse in a few other ways than what I was coming from, what I was expecting, but it is exciting to have a new vehicle. You guys, if you watch my channel, you know I love silver and black vehicles. It looks good, it's efficient, it's fun to have a vehicle that can get 40 mpg or higher in the city. And no matter what I do on the interstate, where it is 80 miles per hour in my area, which I know is a lot faster than the rest of the country, to get 30 miles per gallon on its worst day is fantastic. A lot of other vehicles I've driven get way worse than even 20 at the same speed, at least the trucks and the body on frame stuff I used to own. So for the next few years, I think this will be really fun. I think this will be a good family vehicle. I think this will be a good traveling around vehicle, going to fun destinations, going to fun places to film and look at cars, whatever that might be. But currently driving this to my therapy job, driving this to make the basic videos I make, it is really fun and it's a good experience. Part of the reason I bought this is because it is the most popular crossover in the world. Basically, Tesla Model Y might have something to say with that, but it's a very common vehicle. There's basically always going to be one at every stoplight, at least in the United States market. And I wanted to try it out. I wanted to see why so many people are buying it. And ultimately, it makes a lot of sense. Basically feels like a front-wheel drive economy SUV. Both Toyota reliability, a bulletproof electronic CVT, a really good Atkinson cycle engine. There's a lot that this thing offers. It is very reliable and economy focused, and you can tell that driving that. But is it going to last? Probably 300,000–400,000 miles if well taken care of. Sure, probably would. There's examples of this generation that already have. And for that reason, I think this is going to be fun. I, of course, never know how long I'll keep anything, but I think this is going to be a good vehicle. And comment below, let me know your thoughts and ideas and what you want to see more of. In the near future, there's going to be this video. There's going to be a video about what it's like to own a hybrid. There's going to be a video comparing this to the Outback Wilderness I came from. There's going to be a video comparing it to the current 2025 Subaru Forester. And there's about a dozen other ideas that I'm writing the script for and I am planning out right now, because it's been really interesting owning this. And with that said, I've rambled on long enough. Thank you guys for watching. Like this video, comment your thoughts and opinions below. Take care, guys. See ya.